I never imagined I'd be writing this, but after what happened last week, I need an outside perspective. I need to put this into words to make sense of it, and maybe, just maybe, find some closure. For the past 13 years, my contact with my parents had been minimal. A polite, impersonal holiday card every now and then. A rare phone call filled with stiff, awkward small talk. Nothing more. I had made peace with that. Or at least I thought I had. So when my mother's name flashed on my phone screen out of the blue, my stomach twisted into knots. Something felt off. Greg, my husband, noticed my expression change. "What's wrong?" he asked, setting down his coffee. I held up the phone. "It's my mom." Greg frowned. "Answer it." I hesitated, but finally swiped to take the call. "Hello?" "Sweetheart," my mother's voice cooed, falsely warm, like she was trying to slip back into the role of the doting parent. "How are you?" I knew better than to fall for it. "I'm fine. What's going on?" She sighed. "Your father and I need to talk to you. It's important." There was something in her tone that made my skin crawl. Not worry, not concern, expectation. Greg, listening in, arched an eyebrow. "Something's not right," he muttered. "They wouldn't reach out after all these years unless they wanted something." He was right. Against my better judgment, I agreed to meet them. Greg insisted on coming with me, and I was grateful. I had built a life of peace away from them, but stepping back into their home after all these years felt like walking into a trap. The living room hadn't changed. Same stiff, formal furniture, as if no one actually lived there. My father sat stiffly in his chair. My mother perched on the couch across from me, smiling that forced, too sweet smile. Then she handed me an envelope. I stared at it for a moment before slowly opening it, my fingers trembling. And when I saw what was inside, my heart dropped. A surrogacy contract. Not a request, not a conversation. A fully prepared legal agreement. Emily, my older sister, was struggling with infertility, and my parents had already made the decision for me. They knew about my heart condition. They knew I had nearly died giving birth to my own son, but none of that mattered to them. All that mattered was Emily getting what she wanted. Emily had always been their perfect child, their pride and joy. Growing up, I learned early that I could never compete. She was smart, athletic, and beautiful. They called her their golden apple. They gushed over her achievements, every soccer goal, every A on a test, every minor success. And then there was me. 2 years after Emily was born, my parents hadn't planned for another child. Certainly not one like me. I was born premature, frail, with a severe heart condition that required multiple surgeries. Even though my grandparents covered most of my medical bills, my parents never let me forget how much of a burden I was. If we didn't have all these hospital bills, we could have gone on vacation. Emily's college fund would be bigger if we didn't have to deal with your medical expenses. Meanwhile, Emily was showered with love. When she won a trophy, she got a party. When I won a statewide writing competition, I got a distracted nod. When I was 12, Emily shoved me down the stairs because I accidentally touched her science project. I lay at the bottom, bruised and gasping for air. My mother's response? "You should be more careful around Emily's things." That was the moment I truly understood I was not a person to them. I was an inconvenience. College was my escape. I begged my grandparents to help me get as far away as possible. And when they agreed, I felt a freedom I had never known. For the first time, I was no longer Emily's shadow, no longer the sickly, unwanted child. Then I met Greg. Greg saw me, not as a burden, not as an afterthought, just me. He was patient, kind, and made me feel like I mattered. When we got married, my parents didn't come, didn't send a card, didn't even acknowledge it. But Greg's family? They welcomed me with open arms. His mother helped me pick out my wedding dress, something I had always dreamed of doing with my own mother. For the first time, I had a family that loved me. Years later, Greg and I decided to have a baby. Doctors warned me it would be dangerous. They were right. I was hospitalized multiple times. I nearly died during labor. But in the end, our son was born healthy, and the doctors made one thing very clear. If I ever got pregnant again, I might not survive. So we embraced our small, happy family. I thought I was finally free. Then my parents called, and they expected me to risk my life to give Emily the child she couldn't have. I stared at them, stunned. You know my condition. My doctor said another pregnancy could kill me. My mother burst into tears. How can you be so selfish? Emily has always wanted to be a mother. This is her only chance. My father folded his arms. After everything we've done for you, don't you think you owe us something? I felt like I had been punched in the stomach. Owe you? My voice shook. What exactly have you done for me? My grandparents paid for my surgeries. Greg and his family gave me love. You only ever made me feel like I wasn't good enough. They stared at me, unmoved. To them, I wasn't a daughter. I was a tool, a means to an end. I stood up, shaking. I won't do it. As Greg and I walked out, I heard my mother sob, You've always been a disappointment. And for the first time, I didn't care. At first, I thought the worst had passed. I had walked away. I had made my decision, but the nightmare was only just beginning. The messages started almost immediately. Emily was the first. Emily. Family helps family. If the roles were reversed, I'd do it for you. I stared at my phone in disbelief. The hypocrisy was almost laughable. This was the same sister who never once picked me up from school when my parents forgot me. The same sister who refused to share a bedroom with me at family gatherings because she didn't want my sickly energy near her things. The same sister who had pushed me down the stairs and never once apologized. And now she wanted me to give up my life for her? The texts kept coming. My father, you've let us down for the last time. My mother, Emily is devastated. You're ruining her only chance at happiness. Then came the phone calls. First, from distant relatives I barely spoke to. Aunts, uncles, cousins, people who had been indifferent to my suffering growing up, suddenly flooding my inbox with guilt trips. You're being unreasonable. Emily deserves to be a mother. After everything your parents have done for you, done for me, I wanted to scream. But the worst part, the one call that made my blood run cold, my grandmother. She was the only one in my family who had ever shown me kindness, the one who had quietly helped me escape when I needed it most. So when I saw her name flash across my screen, I hesitated before picking up. Sweetheart, she said, her voice shaking. I overheard your parents talking to a lawyer. I gripped the phone tighter. What? They're trying to find a way to force you to do this. A cold chill crawled down my spine. Force me? I whispered. Legally? They were discussing your medical history, trying to prove you were healthy enough for pregnancy. She paused. They're looking for loopholes. I felt sick. Greg immediately contacted our lawyer, who was furious. They can't make you do this, she assured me. But we need to act fast before they try anything else. I thought that would be the end of it, that they would back off when they realized I wasn't going to cave. But then came the final betrayal. Emily's husband, who had been silent through this entire ordeal, reached out to Greg. I need to tell you something, he said, his voice thick with guilt. Greg put the phone on speaker, and we listened. They falsified your medical records, he admitted. Your parents. They tried to hide your heart condition from the fertility clinic. They wanted to make it look like you were a perfectly healthy candidate for surrogacy. I couldn't breathe. They what? Greg's voice was sharp, furious. I Found out a few days ago, Emily's husband continued. They worked with a doctor to alter your medical history before submitting it to the clinic. The plan was to get you through the first stages before the truth could come out. My hands trembled. They were willing to risk my life just to get what they wanted. I'm so sorry, he said. I didn't know what to do. I can't believe Emily was part of this. Greg looked at me, his jaw clenched. We need to report this. And we did. The fertility clinic launched an internal investigation. The doctor involved lost his license. My parents and Emily were banned from ever using any services connected to the clinic again. And Emily's husband, disgusted by what he had, uncovered, he filed for divorce. It was over. Their perfect, carefully constructed plan had shattered. A few days after the fallout, my grandmother called again. I just wanted you to know, she said softly. Your mother told me you are no longer a part of this family. For a moment, I let the words sink in. If she had said this to me years ago, I might have broken down in tears. I might have begged. I might have tried to prove my worth, hoping, praying that this time they would finally love me. But now, I felt nothing. No sadness, no guilt, just relief. My grandmother hesitated. Sweetheart, are you okay? I smiled, though she couldn't see it. Yes, I said. For the first time in my life, I really am. After I hung up, I walked into the living room where Greg and our son were playing. Our little boy giggled as Greg lifted him into the air, his laughter ringing through the house like the purest melody. This was my family, not the people who had treated me like an obligation, not the ones who only saw me as a tool for their golden child's happiness. Here, right here, in this home, with these people, I belonged. I thought about all the years I had spent chasing after love that would never come. All the times I had convinced myself that if I were just better, just stronger, just more obedient, they would finally see me, finally choose me. But I had been wrong, because real love isn't something you have to earn. Real love doesn't come with conditions. Family isn't about blood. Family is about love, respect, and the people who choose you, not the ones who only care about what they can take from you. And for anyone out there struggling with toxic family relationships, let me tell you this. Walking away isn't weakness. Setting boundaries isn't selfish. Protecting yourself isn't cruel, it's survival. And sometimes, survival means choosing yourself, even when it means leaving behind the people who were supposed to love you. I won't waste another second mourning the loss of people who never truly cared about me, because in losing them, I found myself. And sometimes, survival means choosing yourself, even when it means leaving behind the people who were supposed to love you, and you gave me freedom and a voice. Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so, and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more shocking real-life stories happening around you.